Almost lost my camera there. I don't think my door's shut. Do this at home, kids. How's everybody doing out there? Moon, sun in the sky. You notice like that's the trend in music, to kind of sing like a castrated choir boy. Little femboys. It's a good song. It's just a style, I realize that. I'm sure he's got a deep manly voice in real life. All right, now that we got over that hectic part of the road, is my hair looking all right? Cover up my receding hairline. It's kind of hard when I'm wearing hats all the time. Yeah, how's everybody doing out there today? Beautiful weather. We just had that little bit of a snow flurry last night. Wasn't much, not as hyped up, didn't live up to the hype. You know, the newsmen these days aren't exactly light on hype. Everything's another snowmageddon, right, or a fire apocalypse. Turn this down a little bit. I know it's kind of hard to shout over the music, and it probably annoying the crap out of you right now. But yeah, how's everybody doing? It's been a while. If you noticed, I've been kind of slacking, I guess, on the podcast, the official, the Night Watch podcasts. I haven't really had the time to. I got all these different angles that I'm trying to like piece together into a cohesive topic, right? As a creative person, that's always been kind of a hurdle for me. If you haven't noticed, just the way I incessantly rant, borderline incoherently. Yeah, I have a problem keeping my attention on one topic at a time sometimes. But yeah, I want to cover the biggest thing lately is I'm just gonna turn that off. Song's over anyway. Biggest thing lately is, man, this. So I'm gonna play it on the podcast. I had a little I guess it kind of, I guess it was kind of a offhanded, backhanded shout out from what's his name? I was just thinking about him. I was just looking him up. Clayton Morris from the Redacted show. I just made kind of a snide comment in his comment section when they were just starting off the show, and he started off the show quoting Night Watch N8, and I thought it was kind of funny, so I'm going to use that clip for sure. I'm gonna highly edit it. I'm gonna make it sound like it's a positive thing, not deceptively, because I don't roll that way, but just for fun and games. He started off his comment with, "I love Night Watch N8." So hear the big man himself, of all things conspiracy, alternative media, Clayton Morris with Redacted, starting out as a sentence with that alone was just priceless, right? Priceless. But which brings me to the topic of these fake newsmen that, you know, they kind of masquerade around. Now, I know some of you might watch Clayton Morris and his wife, whatever her name is, Miss Morris. You know, the former Fox News man. Seems to be a pattern, right, with a lot of these alternative news sources, most trusted alternative news sources on the internet right now. They're all seemingly recycled legacy media bobbleheads, right? Celebrities, right? That got their start on a big network. And it's not like they just, you know, built up a following like the rest of us out here in the real world have to do in the grassroots, pounding the digital pavements, you know, trying to do everything you can to thwart the algorithmic abyss, you know, the sentinels that are constantly just completely, you know, throwing a bag over your head and tying you up and throwing you in the corner, tied up in the corner, and you're just there to tread water, basically. I mean, you can put the most hours imaginable, you know, the most creative content, right, guys? I mean, that's what Night Watch Nate is all about, right? Hard-hitting, creative, edgy, you know, in a little package that everybody could digest, right? But they'll stick it in a dark corner to collect dust, and you know, after that first 24-hour period, it will not see any unique viewers unless I personally troll other media platforms and just spam people and say, look at my video, please watch my video, folks, come on, help a brother out. I'm shadow banned out here, guys. I'm doing my best. This is volunteer work. I'm not even asking for money. And I rarely, as is the seems to be the MO with the shows like Redacted, you know, these media personalities that made it big on the corporate enemy of the people news media, only to, you know, break ties and start up their own channels and, you know, rebrand themselves as alternative news. These guys all the time, you know, like Clayton's wife prompted me to make that comment, you know, just begging for money, saying, we're being censored, folks. Please, we need your support. I realize people need to make money, right? And that's a pretty big budget production, really, at Redacted over there. But I do this 100% on my own, volunteer, right? I don't have a crew. I don't have a editor. I don't have a, you know, hipster conspiracy guru with white rimmed glasses. Pull up all those juicy articles for me. I got to do all my own research, and but I don't bitch and moan about it. You know, I'm just here doing what I do. I got to put it out there. I got to do something with my with all this potential that's locked up in my giant cranium here. You know, I got to do something with that, right? Got to get out that creativity somehow, and I also just feel compelled to make a stand right now. To, like, I think a lot of people are. RFK Jr, man, this guy just recently was interviewed actually on a liberal news network, ABC. Imagine that, right, guys? Just a moment, I gotta get past some traffic. Everybody's waiting to pick up the kids from the school bus, I guess. But, where was I? Man, lately, sort of this lack of sleep it's working on me, man. I've aged about 20 years since I started up this channel. Close the window so you can hear me. Jeez. What was I going off about? Shit. Oh yeah, RFK Jr. He was just recently interviewed on ABC, and I think it's interesting how, you know, those of you out there that know me know that I was a young, starry-eyed revolutionary for Ron Paul back in 2008 and 2012. And so that's where I got my real first dose of how the gatekeepers in the corporate news media operate, right? Anytime they're confronted with a true alternative candidate, like Dr. Paul, with a significant grassroots support base, right? Like he had, because people knew him. You know, I just recently stumbled on the guy. I think it was in 2008 or 07. Joined up with the meetup groups. Ron Paul. This was after catching on to the Ron Paul movement, I guess, online. Had a lot of nice locals, like-minded, libertarian. And this is how we organized, right? For the parades and the door knocks and the phone banks and the protest outside of, I think it was 9 News in Denver, trying to get them to pay attention to our candidate, because it brings me to my first point with RFK. Their first tactic is always to just ignore, pretend you don't exist, pretend you're not worth their time, right? And it's all about forming these perceptions in the minds of their viewers, because this is how much contempt they have for their viewers, right? We will decide what is important to you, what should basically go in your ears or your eyes, and consequently what will later come out of your mouth, because so many people had their opinions completely shaped 100% by fake news sources, fake conservative news sources like Fox News. Because all these idiot talking heads, Jesse Waters, he's still around, right? He actually went to college, by the way, the same college, elite, preppy, Trinity College that Tucker Carlson went to. Interestingly enough, CIA came recruiting at that college, by the way, when Tucker was there. I'll get to that later on my podcast, but yeah, Jesse Waters mocking, ridiculing, smearing Ron Paul for his outrageous ideas that we should be this isolationist country, right? We should have this isolationist foreign policy and not get involved needlessly with foreign entanglements and needless, pointless, expensive, costly wars, right? Something now everybody on the right seems to agree with. Isn't that weird how sentiments change over just a period of a decade, right? It seems like people's attention span is no more than 8 years, 2 terms, right? And they all of a sudden they're all about their party again, even after they got screwed by their party the last time around. Like when George W. went and pushed forward the Patriot Act, originally co-signed by Joe Biden after the Oklahoma City bombing, right? Timothy McVeigh and all that. Yeah, it was Joe Biden that originally pushed the original Patriot Act, and he later bragged about it and took full credit for it. So there's a little glimpsey poo, right guys, into this completely controlled opposition, false left-right paradigm. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you choose. If you're going to vote for one of these hand-selected sock puppets, on the right or the left hand, you're just going to keep getting screwed, and we're all just going to keep losing more and more liberties, more and more freedoms here at home, more and more prosperity down the drain, because we have to bail out Ukraine, right? To the tune of, what is it now, $112 billion. I'm thinking on my level, right? Like 100,000 is a lot of money. I can't even fathom. None of us can even fathom what kind of good that could do for our own infrastructure, for our own country, if we spent $100 billion here at home. And that's RFK Jr.'s main point, right? And he's got a very, very, very similar to Ron Paul foreign policy. That's one thing I really like about him. He's kind of like a blue Ron Paul at this point. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Even though, yes, he's self-professed Democrat. And in this interview, I thought it was interesting. They used some of the same little slide remarks that I heard from Fox News on the right, leveled against Ron Paul. Like, he's a long shot candidate. I think that's how they introduce him.
My father, when he declared, had not a single molecule in him that he believed that he could win the Democratic nomination.
Do you have a single molecule that you believe that you can win?
I actually think I can win.
If you don't win during the primary, would you consider an independent run?
I plan to win the primary. I'm going to run a campaign that is respectful to the president, but allows me to challenge him on the issues. And if people prefer to my view of what this country should look like and where it should be headed, then I'll win.
There are those, as I'm sure you're aware, who have criticized or questioned just how loyal you are to the Democratic Party. Do you wholeheartedly, full-throated say, yes, I'm a Democrat?
I'm a Democrat. Otherwise, I wouldn't be running as a Democrat. But I am not loyal to any party above principles.
You know, he's a vaccine. He's anti-vaxxer. He's a conspiracy theorist. Of course, you know, the idiot bobbleheads on The View. I love that. I just gotta love. Imagine working for The View and just knowing that your sole purpose, that's your core, your target audience are completely uninformed and ignorant, and your sole purpose is just to stoke those divisions between the left and the right, and you're just fed a script, right? And you're just there to be, you know, bobbleheaded bimbo, you know, celebrity pushing a particular product, and the product is, you know, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, and all the vomit that they stand for. And yeah, they even say at the one point on this segment from The View, totally different, by the way, I'm skipping all over the place again, I know, but they say, yeah, he's not really a viable candidate. They start out with the fact that he's a conspiracy theorist, right? I think it's what's the idiot with dreadlocks? I should know this by now. I don't even care. But Whoopee Cushion Whoopee starts out literally labeling the guy a conspiracy theorist, you know, before they even mention anything else about him.
The playing field of the 2024 presidential race just got bigger after controversial conspiracy theorist Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced he wants to carry on the Kennedy legacy in the White House, even though he admits members of his own family don't see eye to eye with him.
And then they later bring up this totally fabricated story that I think it was like Roger Stone and some other Trump ally encouraged him to run, right? So they're framing it already, like, because they can't ignore him. That's what my first point was. First they try to ignore you, so they're going straight to the attacks, the character attacks, and they're trying to frame him like he's not a real Democrat. You know, he's anti-vax when, you know, the majority of Democrats got vaccinated. And yeah, in this ABC interview, this was supposed to be more of a you know, respected journalistic sit-down interview with RFK Jr. And this thing is so heavily edited, right? Like, they don't even let him answer the question in certain segments. And yeah, she starts out by saying, you know, how do you think you can get any votes when your own family members won't vote for you, right? It's like there's never been any candidate in history that didn't have 100% of his very large family, by the way. I mean, they're Catholics. Catholics usually tend to have a lot of kids, apparently. Let's be fruitful and multiply and all that. I think that's the philosophy behind that, the agenda behind that trend I've seen in the past. Yeah, she labels this accusation that, you know, you can't even convince some of your family. Well, he's got a huge family, for one thing. And you know, is there any other candidate in history that might not have had 100% support from his family? Probably. But this is all they can dig up on the guy, which is hysterical. And they can't ignore him, apparently, because he's a Kennedy, right? And at this point, he's the only third candidate in the race. I think at one point he was 14, but I think now he's 19%. And you know, of course, the majority of the uninformed idiots out there. I think I might have lost something. Yeah, shoot, I think I might have lost something. Yeah, I did. I'm hauling that. That's kind of unsafe. I'm hauling some trash today. And yeah, big piece just fell off the back. Go back and get that in a second. Be right back. Woo! Yeah, I mean, I got a tarp over my trash in the trailer I'm bringing to the dump today, but apparently a big old piece of sheet metal flew out. Anyway, flying around one of those corners back there in the canyon. But so where was I at? RFK Jr. Yeah. So they're already attacking this guy. The first accusation in this interview, I can't remember her name. I don't really care. Some ABC. Like I said in the comments, I mean, what a contrast between this man who is standing on principle and this shallow corporate shill, basically, of an interviewer, this news anchor. What a contrast between a man who stands on principle and, you know, a little corporate sock puppet who's just there to toe the line, basically, and tear down anybody who dares, you know, challenge this corporatocracy, like he brings it up, this corporate fascism model that has kept this country just under complete control, kept up this illusion of a democracy ever since I've been alive, right? Ever since I've been alive, at least on the federal level, national politics has been completely controlled. You know, it's the best reality TV show big money can buy. That's the way I put it. And that's what it is. And it's these corporate sponsors. You know, is it a coincidence that after Ron Paul, you know, the true outsider, before the Hope and Change 2.0 alternative, you know, con man, people only elected because of his skin tone, Barack Obama came around. Is it a coincidence that after a true outsider, a grassroots candidate like Ron Paul challenged the whole political system by outraising the majority of the candidates, you know, having these online money bombs? He's the one that kicked that off, you know, raising, you know, $2-3 million in one day, and having these money bombs, all small donations. Right after that, I think it was right after 2012, the 2012 election, the Supreme Court, wouldn't you know it, they just gave unlimited spending to corporations in our elections. This is how treasonous these traitors are. This is how completely complete joke our political game show is, our political system. So now, you know, without any scrutiny, you can have corporations write out a check for whatever the hell they want to support a presidential candidate in a national election. Does that make any sense? Like, who from either side of the party divide, who would vote for that, right? Who would think that's a great idea? Yeah, let's I don't know, let's have ExxonMobil, let's have Pfizer, let's have any of these guys just shell out as much money as these filthy rich criminal corporations, transnational corporations. You know, you name it, put a price tag on it. And unfortunately, you know, it's a rare thing to have a candidate like, I believe, RFK Jr. From everything I've seen from the guy, I know a lot of people are skeptical, and it's good to be skeptical, but I don't really see what's in it for him other than, like he says it, he's losing his country. You know, he wants to preserve, I hate how he uses the word democracy all the time, like they all do, but he wants to preserve the democracy for his kids, right? And he sees there's a real threat in this corporatocracy. Yeah, like these corporations, or as the Bible describes them in Revelations 18, merchants of the earth. We're also, by the way, in bed with the harlots, the false religious system. historically located on the Seven Hills in Rome. Yeah, the big white elephant pope that nobody ever points out. Yeah, there's a real incestuous relationship with crony capitalism, big corporations, and our government. And any of these little whores in government, these little prostitutes, they all got a price. You know, I don't care who it is. I don't care. We're all pretty much evil to the core, right? You're born into this fallen world. We're all selfish. You know, I'll admit myself. I gotta catch myself sometimes because I get a little selfish. Yeah, self-absorbed. You know, it's all about me, me, me. What I want, what I think is cool. This is what I'm gonna do because this is, you know, the most important thing to me. And at times you can kind of neglect those around you. That's, if anything, like if I can put that message out there, just kind of moderate your time on these social media platforms, because man, they can really eat you up inside and definitely become, you know, almost an addiction. You know, I think we are all struggling right now. That's okay. That brings me back to the this inner hatred I have for these like fake newsmen that they're confidence men, right? They're confidence men and women, and there's such a vacuum, a void right now for trustworthy news sources. You know, people are thirsty. They're hungry for information, for truth, because we all know we've been lied to for so long, right? And we've completely lost trust, all trust in the you know, the legacy model of news journalism. But I think that's partly what's behind this Tucker firing. Again, I'm gonna get to this, and I'm gonna lay out my case on Tucker Carlson. You know, just my thoughts about the guy. I just hope you realize I have this extreme skepticism just based on everything I've seen in my lifetime. You know, ever since 2007, 2008. You know, when I was labeled one of these insurgents that were taking over, these outsiders that were trying to take over the GOP, when they should have been like happy and to embrace young, fresh blood right into the party, because it's basically at the time it's like a dying church. It's full of a bunch of old white hairs, right? It's like, shouldn't you guys be excited about a candidate that actually draws in some interest in your party? No, we'll go with the John McCain. McInsane. We'll go with John McCain over a Ron Paul that's actually generating some grassroots interest. Yeah, the oldest candidate, John McCain, going against Barack Obama. How'd that one work out for you guys? A lot of the people that I talked to at the caucus, when I was trying to convince people, you know, you should really consider voting for this Ron Paul guy. He's a real deal. I mean, he's perfect, right? He's everything that conservatives should ever hope for. I mean, come on. No, they went with Romney, the slick, yeah, the author of Obamacare, right? Romney Care. They go with that guy as opposed to Ron Paul. Why? Just because they were told so by Fox News. Yeah, repeatedly. They casted Ron Paul repeatedly in a bad light, even though they had nothing on the guy, right? I think one thing they had was like, oh, he had a, what did he have, a newspaper or something, a printed news pamphlet way back when that had a particular editor that expressed some racist remarks, and they tried to paint Ron Paul's a racist because of that. That's all they could like literally pull up on the guy. Other than his positions, which were, you know, let's follow the Constitution. Only the president can declare war. They got rid of that, didn't they? After 9/11. That will just go to war for no reason, and you can't even, Congress can't even question it. Can't even challenge it. Questioning the Fed Reserve. His issue on states should have a say in the abortion issue. That was controversial back then, right? And now it's popular. Isn't that funny? How everything changes. But yeah, the same criminal enterprise, fake conservative news, Fox News. I'm glad finally people are starting to wake up to the fact that it's a joke. You know, everybody, since they canceled Tucker, is canceling their Fox Nation subscriptions, whatever that is. I have no clue. I haven't watched Fox seriously probably since the 2008 election, when they repeatedly, I mean, they'd have their own polls, and Ron Paul would win their online polls by huge margins, and they try to make up excuses. They're like, oh, his supporters are just spamming. Well, you couldn't spam because they'd only let one vote per phone number, but they wouldn't inform their audience of that because they have total contempt for the intelligence of their viewership, right? So yeah, the same enemy of the people, gatekeeper, masquerading as conservative news agencies like Fox, they just seem to pop out all of these talking heads that become celebrities that everybody, just thinks is the bee's knees. And Tucker Carlson's one of them. You can't deny that. He said in a recent interview, he spent his lifetime in corporate news. I think it was 2009, he said. He'd been in news since like 2009. So, all that aside, right? I won't say anything more about the precious golden calf, Tucker Carlson, just yet, until the show, and I get to present my case. And then you can break out the tar and feathering and do what you feel is necessary, right? That's what I'm here for. I'm here to step on toes. I'm not here to toe the party line, okay, guys? I want the truth. Now, can you handle the truth? If said Night Watch Nate actually uncovers something that's actually true, and it might not settle with your preconceived ideas. I just like to get people to think, right? Just question. Yeah, in this interview, let's get back to that real quick. RFK Jr., ABC, just the condensation. I saw the same thing with Ron Paul and Fox News. Condensation in the questioning, right? And this like kind of shit grin on this lady's face. This colored lady, I can't remember her name, but when RFK is trying to explain a valid point, she's just like, and the visuals, they know that a picture is worth 1,000 words and then some. Yeah, I remember how many articles that they'd have of Ron Paul with his monkey look, because he's like in the middle of a sentence. Then he's got the big ears because he's like an old guy, so they make him look like a monkey. Just stupid shit like that. This is how easily the majority of people's perceptions are formed through the Mockingbird media, and they know that, right? And their whole goal is to cater to the ignorant, right? The uninformed, right? That's the target audience for a lot of these cable news networks. Yeah, the uninformed, dumbed down masses. Politics of the lowest common denominator, right? They can get the majority of stupid people to vote for who they want them to vote, and it doesn't matter how many people are woken up, I guess, to their lies. If they just get that majority of stupid people to vote for the one that they recognize, the little golden calf, that Ron Desantis. Right now, I think I can attack Ron DeSantis because Trump went ahead and started laying into him. So now I think it's PC on the right anyway. To throw out a few criticisms of DeSantis. This is one thing I was going to bring up, by the way. Let me read this real quick. I got this phone with me. I hardly ever bring this thing with me. But yeah, so I don't know how many of you heard about this, but Ron DeSantis was on I don't know if it was secret, but he was on a trip down to Israel. So this guy's already acting like a president, right? Like a presidential candidate. And apparently he's buttering up his the Jewish lobby, I guess, because he's down there in Israel signing a bill for his state there in Florida, a hate speech bill. And it's, I'm going to read this one driving. I know this is sketch as hell, but House Bill 269 prohibits people from distributing any material onto public property in order to intimidate or threaten people or harassing people who are wearing anything that identifies their religious or ethnic heritage. Anything. And makes those violations hate crimes, right? This is a felony, okay? It also bans projecting images onto buildings or structures without permission, which they had a group that projected a swastika and made all kinds of news. My theory is like, are these just like agent provocateurs trying to make Florida look bad, trying to make the problem of a skinhead, right-wing, racist a bigger problem than it actually is, right? You always got to ask those questions. How many agent provocateurs are behind some of this narrative that they're pushing? In any case, anything on public property, any flyer that could potentially, and like who defines what's offensive, right? And this is how this dialectic left-right paradigm works, guys. Like I put out recently, like in Poland, I'm going to cover this in another show, podcast. I got, again, a million different podcast ideas right now. I threw out the question, like, how many on the right would be all for a rainbow ban, right? Banning rainbows. Because the connotation is LGBTQ, and the connotation is, kid hack shops, mutilating little children, transgender, what do they call that? Gender assignment, medical care, whatever they want to label it. And yeah, there's a big agenda right now. Like I just saw this on the TV again today. Like they had some trans from Montana, some representative. Was it Zoe something? Some trans representative talking about how this is essential, and I don't know where they didn't even cite the source, but they're like, suicide rates go up in trans people when these anti-trans bills are passed. It's like, you have anything to back that statement up? Because I know suicide rates are higher in your demographic than any other group because you're depressed and you're trying to live a false identity, right? You can't embrace the way God designed you from birth. So yeah, you're going to be depressed, and you should, instead of enabling and encouraging kids go down that road, maybe you should encourage them to seek help, right? Some kind of counseling, some kind of mental health treatment, But we don't want to label it a mental health crisis. No, this is perfectly normal behavior, right, folks? So there is a problem, right? But there's always a quote-unquote solution whenever there's a dialectical problem between the two opposing opposites that behind the media narrative that they're pushing. And I brought this up in Poland, man. It's a primarily Catholic country, right? As is, by the way, Ron Desantis. Thankfully here we have a Protestant tradition of a constitutional form of government that enshrines the right of the individual, which includes, the First Amendment and protection of separation of church and state. But in Poland now, there's so much of a blowback with all this LGBTQ nonsense. You have what do they call them? Blasphemy laws now. Blasphemy laws. And they're throwing people in jail for up to 1 to 2 years for making images of, the Mother Mary, the old classic like icon image of Mother Mary with a rainbow for a halo, right? Rainbow around her head. And they're saying that this I just barely got in. There's a guy waiting at the gate. That was close. Wow, 3 minutes ahead of closing here. They're saying that this religiously offends people, this image of Mother Mary with a rainbow around her head. So the pendulum, like I say, swings both ways, folks. The pendulum swings both ways. I gotta check in. Be right back. Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. Yep. Nice. Give me a deal. Like $15 card charge as opposed to like $20, $25. And the little those like seagulls up there eating up all that trash. It's a trash mountain right there. Soon to be a exclusive housing development, right? See what happens out here. Plains, pricey northern Colorado. End up living on a trash dump someday. Primo priced homes. I'm gonna put my card away. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, so can people see the big picture? Like, you know, beyond this, I think it's overhyped, anti-Jewish, you know, trend. I guess there's some kind of a uptick in Florida, right? Of these neo-Nazi groups that hate Jewish people, okay? Can you see the potential danger in a law that prohibits any kind of distribution of pamphlets, flyers that offend anybody based on their religious heritage or their, you know, or their, what is it, their ethnic group. You know, if you like in Poland, right? If you're that easily offended by a defaced icon, right, with the image of a rainbow around, and it wasn't even like that bad. The pictures I saw, I mean, the icons, like I think it's like Byzantine era. That's old icons that look all comic book characters doing this all the time. Peace. Yeah, they're usually like a gold inlaid halos around their head, right? Like a sun disk. And the ones that were getting everybody all upset, it's the same exact thing, but it's kind of a rainbow effect. But that was seriously offending, I guess, some Christians in Poland. And they've had some serious blowback. Now, the reason I looked into this was I saw this video of all these people that were just like chanting angrily and tearing up a rainbow flag, and spitting on it, right? And there was one, I think she was probably trying to do like a counter protest, she or he, whatever it was. There's one activist, LGBTQ activist, that was just getting escorted away basically, only for fear of her own safety. Man, just the outrage expressed by that audience. It's like, wow. You know, you can see how the pendulum can swing both ways. And these same laws that might sound good today, you know, to some people on the left, right? I mean, on the right, I get them mixed up sometimes, that are like pro gung-ho Israel, right? So such a, and this is a big topic, you know, that taking out of context certain verses in the Bible to make it sound like Israel is vital to the second coming, like it's some kind of prophecy that the whole nation of Israel is going to go back to God and then Jesus is going to come. It's not biblical, I'm sorry to tell you folks, but that's a whole different show. Yeah, they've talked about church and state right there. But the issue of you know, how we got to vet a candidate, and if they're not pro-Israel, we're not going to vote for you. That right there, you're promoting a religion, right? And I'm a Christian, all right? So, but I'm a Protestant Christian, and I know the difference between state-funded, state-promoted religion and true religion, which is of the individual believer, right? Sola Scripture, sola fide, right? The belief of the individual, right? Righteousness by faith. And it's not something that can be, as Ron Paul put it, you can't legislate morality, right? It's got to be a heart change. And that's the key difference. Anyway, here's the dump. I gotta get to work. Look at all these seagulls, though. All the seagulls. Oh my God. Pretty cool. So do it. Let's get busy. What a beautiful day at the dump. And I swear every time I come here, it's like, just amazes me how much junk we Americans can produce. And just within like a month, you know, let alone a year time span. So much garbage, man. It's just, almost, I guess it's kind of sickening, actually. And I'm not like, don't get me mistaken, I'm not like converting to religion of Greta Thunberg or anything like that, but we do produce a lot of garbage, right, guys? Let's be honest with ourselves and our posterity. Posterior. That's funny. I love the old English, man. These guys were geniuses, really. And so on the topic, actually, it just popped into my mind on the topic of church and state. You know, there's a reason why we have the First Amendment, and there's a reason why it's the First Amendment. First Amendment. And but there is definitely a need in politics for Christians, right? Because there's other founding father quotes that say specifically that our Constitution was designed for a moral people, and if we do not have a moral populace, it'll fall apart, it'll fail. And that's where we've arrived to this day, and there's a reason why I think that all these younger generations have been brought up on nihilism, right? Consumerism, you know, church, church I recently attended, the topic was brought up about church attendance. This was from some, you know, big wig within one of these conferences, and just dwindling. You know, like the new model is, I guess, for a lot of these churches, the new model is like the third world model. Or like in Africa, you have one pastor over like 10 churches, right? Because I think in the ministry, this particular denomination he brought up, I think they graduated like 2 or 3 pastors that year. Yeah, I mean, the church attendance is dismal right now. And that's a sign, you could say, of the, keep hitting my camera, my bad, bumpy road. That is a direct indication of the spiritual sickness, right? The decline of spirituality in this country. And, but yet there's like this, I guess I kind of call them like cliche Christians, right? Just kind of wear a little cross lapel on their 3-piece suit coat to identify themselves as Christian, right? I mean, if you can ban rainbows, you can ban anything, people. Seriously. There's nothing bad about a rainbow. What they've done is they've done and twisted the biblical symbolism of the rainbow standing for God's grace after the flood. The bow in the sky, it says in Genesis. And it's a promise from God that he will not destroy the earth again with water during the great flood because of all the sin. And just as in the days of Noah, you know, it's not going to be destroyed by a flood this time. When history repeats, you know, and as in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, men are marrying and giving in marriage eating and drinking and partying down, right? That's how the world is described at the end of time. No, this time there'll be a cleansing by fire. And sin, God is likened to an all-consuming fire. Sin cannot exist in the presence of God. So in a sense, it's got to be those sins that everybody cling to, cherished. Those cherished sins that are going to burn them up during the second coming. I think I can just drive out. I thought it was interesting how do I get out of this place? That's the question. Okay, I'm lost. I thought it was interesting how recently one of these talking heads for Space Force put it out there that Space Force might be used one day for threats that are not of this earth, right? And you get this image in Revelation of Satan gathering together all of his forces, all of his troops, right? For that judgment day, that great battle, Armageddon. Because he so vainly thinks that he can stand against the God of the universe. And I think truly, some of these men that are inspired by demonic entities, I think they truly believe that they can mount a sufficient force, Space Force maybe, against God Almighty, right? And that's how delusional these psychopaths are. These same psychopaths that believe in the devil's lie in the garden. Ye shall be as gods, ye shall live forever. Yeah, the Elon Musks and others that are trying to develop AI, trying to beam their consciousness into the cloud somewhere so that they'll be immortalized. Fourth Industrial Revolution types, Klaus Schwab types, just completely delusional, thinking themselves to be gods, right? And so who do you think is motivating these people to do what they do, right? Who do you think is motivating these people to tamper with the genetic code of all life on Earth, to push for mRNA in our food source, right? To meddle with, to tweak, to use humanity as a petri dish, right? For what? Just an assumption here. Are they trying to experiment on the Earth's population? Not just with the agenda of population reduction, but also maybe just to kind of do a little tweak here and a tweak there of the DNA to see, over time, generation or two, hey, maybe this might work to develop their life extension technologies, right? Just an idea. Just makes you wonder, what is the motivation behind these evil psychopaths like Bill Gates, these Pfizers, right? These massive transnational corporations, right, that already have filthy wealth, right? I mean, how much more do you need? And ultimately, if you really study it out, this goes beyond the profit motive. This is just pure evil, right? As former Pfizer CEO Mike Eden put it, he came to the realization that this has got to be another force motivating these people, and he brought up the concept of good and evil.
And that tells you that the people who are doing this are ruthless, I would say diabolical. That we're beyond good and wrong and right. Okay, we're in the good versus evil. I've not been a religious person, but I'm absolutely clear in my mind the only people, the kind of planning and thinking it takes to have done what has happened, are people who would worship Satan. They're not normal people.
And it's true. There is a real battle, right, between good and evil, between truth and lies, between the father of lies and author of sin and death, and the author of all life, right? Anyway, I hope all that made sense. I'm in town now. I know I've already gone too long. Might have lost, probably 90% of my audience by now if I look at my metrics. Yeah, most people only stick around for a handful of minutes, but I got a lot to say. And, time goes by and I haven't put out a podcast. I just gotta kind of, all these different angles, all these different subjects, topics percolating in my skull. I just gotta kind of like just let off a little steam, like a little tea kettle, right? Hopefully I'm not the pot calling the kettle black, but I'll admit, I'm probably I probably can be a hypocrite at times too. But my agenda is, if I have any agenda, it's to arrive at the truth and to promote the truth as I have come to find it, right? And there's no greater truth, and I say this time and time again, everybody out there that's thirsting and hungering and going to this, false prophet or that false prophet, fake newsman or this fake newsman for the whole truth, you're never going to get the whole truth, from a You're never going to get the whole truth from someone with a giant corporate megaphone, right? And the bigger people get, right, the harder it is to really put out a truthful message, because you're always going to offend somebody. The truth always offends, right? It's likened, the word of God is likened to a double-edged sword, right? Thy word is truth, and it's a double-edged sword, and it cuts, asunder. It says cuts in half. There are two polar opposites, right? The truth creates, it's either black or white, right? There's no gray areas when you're talking about the truth, okay? And so, the bigger somebody gets, the bigger the profile, larger the audience, you're going to get less and less truth. That's just a rule of thumb, right? Because they want to continue to build their little empires here on Earth. They don't want to offend their target market audience, right? And that's why so many people just fall right into this left-right paradigm, right? Republican versus Democrat, left versus right, Crips versus the Bloods, right? This bad cop, good cop game show. And that's where all the money's at, unfortunately. That's where people make the real money, is promoting the same paradigm, the same controlled opposition optics, right? When in reality, none of these, control freak, lusting after power and privilege and influence, none of these people, as politicians, give a damn what letter is in front of their name when it comes down to it, right? R or D. You think any of them really care? You think they have loyalties like that? Right? You think their loyalties extend beyond anything other than just more power, more money, more wealth, more privilege, more name recognition, more worship from their followers? In any case, I gotta cut it short before I get in an accident here. I'm pulling a trailer now, and I'm talking on a phone with a tiny little, or a camera with a tiny little screen. And hopefully I got you all to think a little bit outside the political box today, if nothing else. Look forward to that show. It's coming up, next podcast. And my intention is to tackle Tucker, right? And just this ongoing trend of the legacy fake news propping up these celebrities, which is basically what they are, right? These political commentator celebrities, propping them up and letting them go, right? So they can spread their wings to become even bigger, following the like the Joe Rogan model of alternative news. That's the new news, right? Everybody's saying, and they're like rejoicing, Twitter's the news now, Twitter's the media now. It's like, yeah, that's how it was designed, okay? And it's always this, they have to build this consensus that where you go to get your news, your trusted news source, right? Your trusted newsman, they have to continually paint them as being authentic, right? And if they lose credibility in the legacy dead corporate news media right now, everybody's woken up to that fact. Thankfully, years and years and years after the fact, right? Like I've been saying this for 2 decades now. People have finally woken up to the fact that Fox is a joke. In order to maintain any credibility, to continue to steer the narrative, to continue to form a consensus with the electorate, right? To continue to push them which way they want to pass this or that bill, to completely, as Ron Desantis just recently did with another hate speech law in Florida, continue to tighten that noose around all of our necks. So it doesn't matter which side of this political divide you identify with, we all lose in the end. And America looks more and more and more, like I put out in a post recently, like how many on the right would be all for Sharia law if it was clothed in Christianity, right? Well, look at Desantis in Florida, protecting the Jewish minorities against hate speech. And what other different demographics do you think that might protect in the future? That's my question, right? Like the Bible as I read it, it points out the whore of Babylon, right? There's a lot of rebuke in the Bible. If you're a Christian, you shouldn't be easily offended, okay? When Jesus was put on trial, he didn't snap back at his accusers. He went like a lamb to the slaughter, basically, right? And there was no guile and no contempt in his mouth, right? And that is the prototype, however you want to split it, right? However you want to twist it. I mean, Jesus is the prototype, right? Of a Christian, the standard, right? What would Jesus do, right? Like the little bracelets used to say. So, yeah, we shouldn't be easily offended. There's a lot of rebuke in the scripture, right? The message to the church of Laodicea at the end times, right? The final church, he says, I'll spew thee out of my mouth, right? You make me vomit, right? Because you are lukewarm. And he'd rather you have his church hot or cold, because, we make a really bad example if we, wear that little badge or that little Christian pin, that little cross, and proclaim Christ and act completely contrary to his character, right? So that's why he wants his church to be hot, on fire for the truth, right? Or cold, an atheist, right? Just deny God altogether. You do more harm in the middle, riding the fence, than you do if you're hot or cold for the Christian faith. In any case, where was I going with that? Yeah. Persecution can come from either direction, and one day you give the same powers to the state to take away from this group, or to, it always takes, in order to give special protection for any minority group, you have to take away rights from all the other groups, right? Think about it. And how can these same hate speech laws be used for any demographic? And like I said, my Bible reads, calls out the whore of Babylon, which is the apostate church, which is historically Protestants all identified papal Rome as the harlot who sits on 7 hills. Now that's a pretty hateful, I guess you could call it a hateful message. It's the truth. Either it convicts you or it angers you, right? It's going to make you really pissed off, or it's going to make you really want to latch on to the truth and know more of the truth, right? The founders of this country identified. That's why why do you think it took so long for a Catholic to get political office, right? Why do you think it's not until now that we might potentially have, and this includes RFK, RFK is I don't know how devout of a Catholic he is, but a RFK or a DeSantis or a Biden, potentially, first time in our nation's history that a Catholic would go against a Catholic for the seat of the White House. Why do you think it took so long? Why do you think Biden's the only second Catholic in the White House since JFK Jr. or JFK? getting them all mixed up now. Yeah, it's because there's a serious skepticism of where a Catholic's allegiances lie, whether it's to the Pope or to the Constitution. And JFK had to answer that question. And I'd ask the same question of RFK, right? I don't see him as too serious of a Catholic, right? I'm not sure what his status is, if he's a regular mass goer or what. But if you truly subscribe to that faith, you have to believe that the Pope is the head of the church. And you can't think and you can't act outside of the decrees of the Pope. And so when the Pope is vehemently opposed to our Constitution and he's openly pushing for globalism and the New World Order like Pope Francis is, it's a pretty applicable, it's a pretty serious question that any candidate should still have to answer. But now we've arrived at such a place in this country where it's not even an issue, right? We don't even ask. And I think it's interesting that we've arrived at that place at this point in time in this country. That, we have a 3/4 majority Catholics on the Supreme Court and not one Protestant in the once Protestant nation of America. And so you'll see, I think, if you read the Bible and prophecy correctly as I see it, Revelations 13:15, false worship will one day be enforced, and that means that the church has to get back in bed with the state. And that means that I think we'll see something similar to what's going on in Poland right now with their blasphemy laws. And as is always the case, the most persecution the Christian church has ever been subjected to throughout history is when the church was in power, in control of the state, right? The harlot church, the apostate, fallen church, riding on the beast of government, right? Controlling the reins of government, church and state. That history of 1,000+ years of the Roman Church ruling over old Dark Age Europe is the prime example of why the founders thought it was vital to start out with the First Amendment, separation of church and state. And I like to preach that and repeat that because a lot on the right now are all for getting rid of that clause, right? I almost ran a red light. It's a big issue. And like I said, there's no other time in history that the church has faced worse persecution than when the false professed religious leaders were in control of government, the affairs of the state. And it was the false religious leaders of the day who put Christ on trial, right, in combination with the Roman Empire. The church begging, right, like Pontius Pilate, to kill this man for blasphemy. Yes, they accused Christ of blasphemy, just like they're doing from the other, flip things around a little bit. Right now they're persecuting the LGBT community. And I know that sounds unheard of in this country because things are so flipped around, but the pendulum is going to swing to the other extreme. Trust me, okay? If you look at the pattern of history, right, human nature doesn't change. And people are going to get really irate. And some could argue, rightly so, at this godless, nihilistic, poisonous culture, in this culture war. But we got to be careful, and I don't know how much we can do to really avoid it because God predicted it from the beginning. We're going to fall back into this church-state relationship, and people are going to persecute God's people thinking they're doing God's will. Yeah, that's how it's outlined in the book of Revelation. Anyway, I've talked too long. Hopefully all that made sense. God bless everybody. I'm going to try not to kill myself or anybody else right now. Heavy traffic here in Fort Collins, going down College. Headed to the Whole Foods, probably grab some groceries, and hopefully get back up home before it's dark. Thankfully the days are getting longer. It's like beautiful down here. It's like spring. It's like summer. The trees are starting to bud. Gotta love it. Anyway, God bless everybody. I hope some of that stuck. And let me know if you have any comments in the comments section. If you listen this long and you're still not subscribed, subscribe. Hit all notifications if you haven't already, because then you'll never be If you don't, you'll never hear any of my future content. And I put a lot of work into some of this content, you know, some of these podcasts. Put a lot of time into it. And I think they're valuable information. So hopefully you do too. God bless everybody. Night Watch Nate. Have a great weekend. Signing out. Love those chemtrails, don't you?